What the buff is up, Denny's? From Radio 1190 at CU Boulder, this is What the Buff. CU football for the frat bros, the girlies, and the gays. I'm Lincoln Roch.
And I'm John Santos. Today we're going to be holding a funeral for the Pac-12, hosting a Big 12 Bonanza, and talking about CU's beefed-up offensive line. But first, let's run through all things Deion Sanders did this week to get headlines.
Oh, Coach Prime. Joining us today as our inaugural guest is both me and John's former rehab counselor, the man, the Zin, the legend himself, Oregon State University junior, Jake Zimmer, our man in the Beavers.
How's it going, guys? Did we need to address the rehab thing before we get started?
Why not? I think we're good. We can move on. People can make their own assumptions.
Yeah.
So, first episode, a little rundown. We're going to be in your feed probably like once a week. We'll be talking about all things Buff, the game we just played, the game we're going to play, and like I said, every little thing Deion Sanders does that is making national news because no one can go viral like Deion. So speaking of Deion, let's first talk about the news that is angering a lot of sports journalists. Colorado, Deion and CU Athletics has banned a reporter actually from asking questions at his press conferences. The guy's name is Sean Keeler. He's from the Denver Post. He's their sports columnist, and he's been critical of the Buffs. But John, what do you think? Do you think banning a reporter from asking questions is the right move?
I think it's a little bit dramatic, to be honest.
I feel like personally, I'm a journalism nerd. I'm the managing editor of the CU newspaper. I was making headlines in high school, writing for the newspaper.
Yeah.
I'm a big press freedom guy. I was pretty disappointed in Deion, and here's why. Deion, obviously one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL history. Like, he's in the Hall of Fame. Also played a World Series. No one's ever done that, been in a Super Bowl and a World Series. Like, there's no denying that his talent is why he's here today. But you also can't deny, from his days at Florida State, what has always separated him from other players is that charisma, is that understanding of media relations. There's a reason he's called primetime. It is those pundits that love him for that energy. So you'd think he would love any attention he can get, even bad news. All news is good news. All media coverage is good media coverage. It's kind of press 101. And I feel like having a hater kind of can drive you, having someone to bash on and go back and forth with in the press conferences, that brings you those headlines. That makes the news, when you're actively, battling out in the press conferences.
And now the headline is that Deion and Colorado University at large has banned Keller. That's the headline.
Yeah.
Effectively, Deion put this reporter on a pedestal, which I do not think was Deion's motive was to promote this guy's career. But I personally don't have a problem with him telling this journalist to take a hike. I think it's in Deion's best interest to control the narrative as much as he can, especially after some weird news coming from Saudi Arabia and their NIL coordinator.
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem with him telling Mr. Keller to take a hike.
So let me just run down about Sean. So Sean, this isn't just some guy, some fresh journalist trying to make a name for himself by attacking one of the most viral coaches in the NFL. This is a legit sports reporter. He's been at the Post since 2018. In that, I'm pretty sure he's seen, it's either 4 or 6. I think it's four different head coaches at CU in that short time frame. Deion came in, he brought all the hype, and then, he had 3 phenomenal first games. But by Colorado State, I was at the CSU game. My godfather has season tickets. Shout out John Gregorio. He's getting inducted in the CU Hall of Fame this year. Got to give him a shout out.
Congratulations.
Go John. But so he gave us our seats to the game, and I'm going to be honest, me and my dad left during that game in the fourth quarter because it was just we weren't going to win. And then
it was like 11:30 at night.
Yeah, obviously, to Deion's credit and to his team's credit, they flipped it around and they won. But
it's tough being that close versus
that late.
CSU.
Yeah, CSU, who had a horrendous season, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
It's honest. It was embarrassing. Yeah, we won, but
you can't be letting it get that close.
Yeah. And I mean, last season, they did play a lot of football in that fourth quarter, making that change. But, I think that's part of Colorado's problem is, football games aren't won in the last minutes of the fourth quarter. They're won in every minute of every quarter. And so I will say, so this guy, right, so he, once again, to his credit, he's a career sports reporter. He has 12 different Associated Press Editors National Writing Champion awards. Like, he's good at what he does.
Legit, yeah.
Here, I was listening to the DNVR Buffs podcast, though, and they brought up something of he did kind of, when Deion came, he did cross a line when the first practice they held for the media that was open to the media in the spring when Deion came, he did cross a line of the two rules were, you cannot mention any of the plays, anything going on at the practice. You don't want to give that info away. And two, don't talk to John. Look this up. Who was the he's the most, other than Deion, he was the most famous Buffs coach of all time. Famous, a legend. I'm pretty sure he coached us to the national championship tie that we had in the 90s. But this guy has Alzheimer's now. So the rule was like, hey, the family does not want you talking to him. Like, he's not there. And, they want to leave his legacy as it was.
And this guy seeked him out.
And Keeler went up to him and interviewed him on the record. Not just went up and said hi, but interviewed him on the record. And I'm pretty sure printed it or tweeted it out. And it was some sad stuff. It was like him talking about how depressed he was having Alzheimer's. And after that, supposedly they never held a open practice again until the one they held in Denver.
And there was a hard line not to speak.
Yeah, there was two rules, and
that's why I don't have a problem with Deion telling this guy to take a hike. I think if the point was to ostracize him, I don't know why you would publicly make such a big deal about this, but I don't have a problem with him telling him he can't come. This is Deion, coach of the CU football team, not Deion Sanders, the president of the United States, or governor of Colorado, or anything of that nature.
You make a great point of because it does feel kind of Trumpy, on paper.
Sure.
When you forget, it's a football press conference. Like, this isn't, going to affect the state of this country. It's football.
Right.
Right.
Right. No one's
forget,
First
in the
Amendment,
end, it's
right?
A game.
Right.
It's a game.
And the Denver Post is still represented in the media room. It's just that one reporter.
And he's still credentialed. He just can't ask questions.
He can come to every press conference. He just can't. He can even raise his hand. Obviously, Deion won't call on him.
Yeah.
But he's allowed to come. The Denver Post is allowed to come. Other columnists are allowed to ask questions in those press conferences. So it's just him.
Well, and here's the other thing. I remember his first press conference. It was fiery. He was angry at the media because, CBS did not give Colorado much hope.
That's right.
In their first rankings. And CBS Colorado, which is not CBS Sports National. It's the CBS 4, CBS Denver, the local outlet. They stood up and he said, the reporter said his name and said with CBS and just, nope, sit down.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm not taking questions from CBS. You know why? And the reporter was like, I'm from CBS Colorado. He's like, I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
CBS and the name, sit down. That, honestly, I have more issue with than anything because that is just unfair.
Well, it's petty.
That's petty to
dramatic.
This I understand. This guy crossed the line. This guy has said some stuff. They had receipts to go with the press release. I don't have them on me, but it was. He has been very.
Well, he's been
critical.
calling Deion names. I don't have the names off the top of my head, but definitely some ones that aren't flattering.
No, and that I get. When you are being disrespectful, I think Deion handled it wrong. If I was Deion,
Definitely.
I would never pick on it.
Just don't pick him.
Just don't pick on him and silently do it. Don't publicly do that because now you have, because the thing is, the journalism industry, when you come after another journalist, the entire industry gets defensive, because it's a very niche, tight-knit community. If you attack one of us, you attack all of us.
So to you, this sounds like a potential war on the media from
And I don't think
Deion.
it is. I don't think it's intentional. I think that's the message it unintentionally says. And I'll say, so as
It
someone
does.
who's going to those press conferences this year, it does intimidate me. I think there's kind of a chilling effect of, oh, well, we got to ask nice questions. Like, I'm kind of scared now to
Now's your
ask
opportunity
some
to
of those
not
hard.
ask a
Exactly,
nice
'cause
question.
especially with, being just like student media, no one really cares if the CU Independent has press credentials or not.
Right.
So
Well, it's
I
weird
don't
too.
wanna lose
Actually,
those.
he put a it's like him saying like, "Hey, if you want me to say your name 10 times, then be disrespectful to me." So
Exactly.
I'm wondering if maybe more big bald journalists are going to be in his ear trying to make a name for themselves. I wonder if he
Exactly.
called for that.
And
by doing this.
I do think you make a good point. I think this year, obviously last year was full court press. Everyone in this country was a bandwagon CU fan for
Yeah, it
for
was
3
so
games.
annoying.
I saw a tweet where it was like, remember that 1 month period where we were all CU fans?
Right.
I think this year, because of that, there's going to be a hard course correction of underestimating the team every chance they get and really not playing up their wins, especially with, we're going to get to it, just how good the offensive line is now.
Well, we yet to see. We don't know yet.
But
Yeah.
I mean, supposedly what I've heard, we have a player in my fraternity on the team, and supposedly it's going to be a big difference. Because last year,
Well, yeah.
last year, Shador Sanders, he was by far one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in terms of passing yards, but he was tackled more than any other.
He was sacked 52 times.
It's criminal.
Yeah.
Being sacked 52 times, Shador Sanders needs to press charges.
Yeah.
Someone needs to be in prison for in the manner that Shador was attacked last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course a player though is going to say, "Hey, we look great this year." But there's no way to really tell until I think this first game with North Dakota is going to be a really good test. They have an underrated defensive line. They got some real hard-nosed linebackers. And so we're really going to get to see this new offensive line on display for this first game. Should be a good way to see into the future on the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I think this game particularly, obviously you can't prepare all summer, all year, all postseason and preseason for every single game.
Right.
But they've known they're playing North Dakota State. If they, this is their chance to show off all that work they've done, all that beefing up, that changes, and honestly, if they drop the ball in this one, I would say it speaks more to Deion and his team, or Deion and his coaching staff, than the team itself, because it's just, they're either going to kill it and just show we are prepared. We're prepared to go to Nebraska. We're prepared to go to Lincoln. We're prepared to go to Fort Collins and really redeem ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if they lose to North Dakota State, that's the story. That's the last story about CU this year. If they, win, but a bad win, just like CSU last year, that's the story of the year for CU. If they kill it, they don't make any. They beat North Dakota State. Wow. And so ideally, they just don't get any coverage. Ideally, it's just like, they get a quick segment on Sports Center and then move on, and then with Nebraska and with some of those other teams in the Big 12, and so we'll get to their schedule in a bit. That's when they it's crazy because they were obviously the team to beat last year in terms of coverage. They were the behemoth in terms of press. This year, honestly, they're kind of coming in it as underdogs, as Colorado is really not what we thought it was going to be. And I think it's their job this season to change the minds of those press corps. And I'll just finish with this before we move on. I was writing a little opinion piece for the newspaper, and I won't say what all it's about. We don't know if it's going to get published yet. I just wrote it. But, I think I had a line in there that said something of sorts of, what does Coach Sanders want here? Does he want the press corps to pat him on the back and say, well, at least last year he brought, merch sales up. Like, yeah, we're paying him a lot of money. He's getting a great deal here, especially from merch sales, especially from his salary. And the question is, and the problem is, We had a losing season last year. We had we had an equal losing season to the years before, if not worse than some of the other coaches. And so right now, and once again, I want to praise him. He turned around Jackson State in 2 years. He, once again, one of the greatest NFL players of all time, even at the people forget, at the high school legend, or at the high school level is where he made his coaching name for himself. Even though he got that fame at Jackson State, it's that if you go back and look at those high school games, that's where you see Deion thrive. In my opinion, it's when he doesn't have that press attention, when you're just doing prep sports like high school, that's where you can really focus not on the media and selling your team, but on selling your team on the field, getting those results. So let's move on. Let's talk about Saudi. Let's talk about them Saudis. You want to go with this, Jake?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about what I know. So it sounds like the CU NIL coordinator, or at least that was part of his job, was coordinating the NIL funds, was caught, or they noticed that he was making some trips to Saudi Arabia, which right now is under criticism for some human rights stuff.
Oh yeah.
So think what you will about Saudi Arabia right now. Yeah, they are being judged hard, but he's been making these trips there, and sounds like there's been some conversations about dipping into the Saudi royal family's public trust fund, which is the same fund that does some of the pickleball stuff and live golf. So there's some controversy there. It sounds like that guy was fired, but there is something to be said about how
it's technically it's called the Sovereign Wealth Fund. But
the Sovereign Wealth
It's
Fund.
essentially the Saudi Trust Fund.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So he was asking for funds, money from that fund for NIL money for CU. Doesn't sound like CU was involved as an organization. They were involved. Doesn't sound like Deion Sanders as a person was involved. I mean, that person has been fired, but it does bring up some questions on his inner circle and what's going on there.
And that's something that I think, honestly, this was more shocking to me, because I think, you can judge someone by who they surround themselves with.
Definitely.
I respect Deion, Coach Sanders, a lot, because, he brought his team from Jackson State to CU. He brought them with him. He takes care of his people. He clearly, if you work for him and you gain his respect, he's not going to forget that. Right. And, so that's why I was a bit shocked, because, there's a possibility Deion didn't know about it, but
yeah, he might have. I mean, it's hard to hide multiple flights to Saudi Arabia. So I'd be curious to know. Obviously, we'll never, ever hear the truth, but I'd want to know if Deion knew or if CU knew. Not to get into conspiracy theories here, but that would be a bad look.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, he is a former coach. He was the assistant coach, and he was dealing with NIL, and Sports Illustrated.
So he's in the inner circle. He's in Deion's inner circle.
This is definitely someone Deion would have trusted.
Yeah.
And it looks like they tried to create a partnership ahead of the first season, back when we were of the first season of them in the Big 12 this year. It seems like they wanted to do something. So he was the special teams coordinator. So, and
also did some NIL stuff, it sounds like.
It seems like it.
Well, it's interesting actually, coming off of last season, hearing Deion complain about the new NIL thing. College players can start getting paid. He expressed some frustration about how it makes it hard to bring a team from year 1 to year 2 and have that cohesive play style. He's complained about that. So it does make it look weird, like Deion saying, hey, I'm really frustrated about this NIL thing. It's really hard to get players to come back the next year. And then the next year, you're now asking what some would call a criminal organization for money.
Because I mean, the Saudis, if you look at what they did with Live Golf and with the PGA, American institution,
Yep.
up there with the
Hostile takeover.
MLB. Yeah, they did a hostile takeover of essentially, of the MLB, but for golf,
Right.
one of these. And once again, and we're going to talk about the Pac-12, just like with the Pac-12, I mean, obviously there was mismanagement from the PGA. When you've been such a powerhouse for so long, they kind of fell asleep at the wheel. And I think their former leader definitely had a lot to blame there, especially when he vowed not to, he vowed to fight, live, and then caved almost immediately. But
within
we don't even
the
get
year.
into golf. Yeah. And so, I mean, we'll have to do a whole nother episode. We'll have to have you back on foreign money in U.S. college football, especially like giving foreign money to U.S. institutions like CU Boulder.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Will be interesting to see how the NCAA, how Colorado, how the trustees here, and how, the country kind of ends up treating that. Because, once you open those gates, those floodgates, once they're open, you're going to have, I mean, the Saudis have a lot of money, the Middle East, oil,
Yeah. The moment that Deion is able to get money from the Saudis, you'll start seeing a lot of other schools go and make that same trip to ask the same thing.
Yeah, well, and it's like, I don't know if he's Saudi, but I know he's from the Middle East. He might be UAE, but, with like Man City, obviously Man City is probably the best football club that the Premier League will ever see. And their owner only came to, like, in his entire history, he's come to 2 games. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about Man City. He cares about the money and the attention.
Yeah.
And when you have that much money and you're able to funnel so much money into your players that you just can afford to get the best players in the world, like, obviously you're going to win games. So I want to move on here.
Before we move on really quick, just want to highlight, why is it bad to take money from the Saudis? Just real quick. One, they're dealing with some human rights stuff that the world at large does not look kindly upon. And the Saudi family was very close with the Bin Laden family. Another reason why Americans get so weird about taking money from the Saudis is the Saudis and the Bin Laden family were very close.
To the non-international relations majors out there, if you don't know, the U.S. government funded Bin Laden back in the day in the 80s.
We're doing this.
Just real quick.
Yeah, just a cherry on top.
And the Saudis obviously a very sketchy human rights record, especially like LGBT rights, women's rights. But they're one of our closest allies, the U.S. We give them a whole lot of money, and I think we have a U.S. base there. I might be wrong, but anyways, let's move to offensive line here. What's the Arby's saying? CU football, we've got the beef. The new offensive line caked up. John, I want to hear you're our man on the offensive line. Let's break down what some of the changes that came from recruitment and the transfer portal this year.
Yeah, so I think offensive line last year was one of our...
real quick, actually. I forgot. Let's do our first ad break here. Kind of tease the offensive line there. We'll be right back.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. That also happens to have delicious meats and fresh veggies all sandwiched between fresh baked bread. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
So, fun fact here, Jimmy John's is doing the deal of the century right now for $10 of the century. For $10, you can get an original sandwich, chips, dessert. They have cookies and brownies that are gas, and a drink for just $10.
Just $10.
An 8-inch sandwich.
8 inches. That's arguably too much.
Yeah,
8 inches is a lot
for $10. I mean, I've put way less meat, way less cold cuts in my mouth for more, arguably. I think the sandwich by itself is $9. So You're getting a drink, chips, and a cookie for just $1 more. Deal of the century. I think I was hearing. I won't get political here, but one of the candidates said it's the biggest deal he's ever seen, arguably the best deal he's ever seen. And he's going on about how no one does sandwiches like Jimmy John's. Nobody.
Absolutely nobody.
He's never seen somebody win at the sandwich game like Jimmy John's has. And anyways, once again, thank you to Jimmy John's, and let's get back to the show. John, let's talk about the offensive line.
Yeah, so I think last year our offensive line was pretty atrocious. Shedeur Sanders was the most sacked quarterback in college football.
Which is
Criminal.
nuts. Criminal.
But to his credit, he is also very safe with the football. I believe
Great quarterback.
great quarterback, despite all of his
Well,
maybe the best.
real quick, John, you're looking lovely today. I just wanted to say that. Continue.
Thank you. That means a lot. But despite being sacked 52 times last year, he only threw 3 interceptions.
That's actually an insane stat.
That's like
is
incredible.
that I did not know about.
And that's been pretty consistent throughout his entire college career.
No, he's sick.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Very safe with the football.
obviously, when you're raised by Deion Sanders, when you have that,
You got to be sick.
when you have
Yeah.
that primetime blood
Yeah.
in you, just that alone, and not to discredit him. I mean, obviously, he's got that influence as a kid, and probably an awesome dad, and especially when it comes to football. But also, he's his own man.
Yep.
He is gonna probably be, especially depending on how this season goes. He could go down as one of the greatest college football quarterbacks of the last decade for sure.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think that my prediction would be he's going top 10 in the next draft.
Because he's a senior, right? This is his last year of eligibility.
Yeah, I know he's going to the
He's
draft
totally
next
gonna,
year.
no
I don't
matter
know
what, he's going to
grade this
declare.
guy
Him
is
and
in.
Travis,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, you said how many not
3
interceptions? How many sacks last year?
52.
52, and was pressured 40% of his dropbacks. 3 interceptions actually does that makes him a really good quarterback.
It's pretty insane.
I cannot believe that stat. Actually, I did not know that.
Yeah, and it's been consistent throughout his entire career. He's always been very, very safe with the football. But I think now that our offensive line is beefed up, especially with our new 5-star recruit, Jordan Seaton,
And that's the left tackle.
he is the left tackle.
Okay. He's no joke.
Projected. He is no joke. He's the real deal. He was ranked the '1 best tackle in the nation.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
By rivals, ESPN, 24/7 Sports, On 3. So all
That's just impressive.
very
Man,
big,
He's gonna make a name for himself.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
very, very credible ranking.
He's still a true freshman though, so we'll definitely have to see.
It'll be an adjustment.
It's an adjustment. There's no simulating high school football to college football.
Yep.
No.
You do all
2
the
different
practice.
games.
2 different games. You can do all the practice, but
When you're playing high school football, when you're the best player in the state,
No
you're
one's
not really
touching
often. No one's touching you.
Yeah.
But then you go to the big leagues, and
Everyone
you're a
can.
small
Oh, yeah.
fish in a big pond.
Yeah. Which I don't know. Obviously, he shows tons of promise, but there's something to be said about, And again, not to beat a dead horse, but we're going back to North Dakota here. They have, a sneaky good defensive line. They have some rough linebackers. So it'd be interesting to see how he stacks up against them this
Oh yeah.
upcoming. When is that game?
It's Thursday, so we obviously don't know yet. But
I'd like to see what I'd like to see that matchup, the linebacker and defensive line of North Dakota versus our new 5-star left tackle.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be. That's gonna be the thing to watch.
Yeah.
At this game is how he plays, and then also let's talk about the transfers because we also got some pretty solid people in the transfer portal this year.
The big transfers that we got were Justin Mayers. He was from UTEP, and he's a tackle, or he's
Nice.
a guard actually. 24/7 Sports ranked him the number 6 interior offensive lineman as of
Nice.
in the entire.
What was it? Number 7?
number 6?
Number 6.
How big is this guy?
How big is he?
Yeah, that was the rumor last year, was our offensive line isn't big enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, he weighs
I- well,
320 pounds.
He's a big guy.
So he's a
Okay.
pretty
We had
big
some
guy.
big guys last year
let
as
me
well.
just say, I was there, like at that CSU game. I think my dad said, he was like, "Why do we have a bunch of twinks protecting on the quarterback?"
Insane.
And I mean, it's real. They were pretty lightweight. So this guy's
a big change.
I mean, this guy probably has 100 pounds on some of our players last year on the O-line. So, yeah, who else do we got?
Other than that, we have Khalil Benson, who should be starting tackle. He is...
How big is this man?
This man is 305.
305.
So
Not bad.
pretty big, but still agile. He's coming from Indiana, and
Okay. Corn-fed.
Jesus.
Let's go.
I was my mentor. Got to shout out Marianne with the Colorado Politics, the Colorado Springs Gazette at the state capitol. Marianne, I love you. You are very demure. You are very joyful, very brat.
Oh my God.
Marianne.
This is the dean of the Colorado State Capitol Press Corps. But,
We love Marianne.
We love Marianne. Why isn't she on the O-line?
Why
That's my
isn't she?
question.
That's a great question.
Anyways, let's get back to the football players here.
Yeah, so
Sports ball.
Khalil Benson is by 24/7 Sports ranked the number 12 interior offensive lineman in the transfer portal.
And then what? We're talking about him right now. What about Will Shepard? What do we think about him?
Will Shepard, he is coming from Vanderbilt, and he yard-wise wasn't super eye-popping.
Yeah, not that impressive. But here, John, tell him the secret sauce here. What's going to make the difference?
he is a very good red zone wide receiver.
Nice. It's exciting.
He's very good at...
That's awesome. Real quick, John. So for the sorority girls and the gays, what is the red zone?
The red zone is, I believe, does it start at the 20-yard line?
Yeah, starts
Yeah.
at the 20-yard line and
Goes to the
well, it
The
includes the end zone,
end zone,
where
yeah.
you score a touchdown.
Pretty important part,
Yeah.
obviously. Before we move on, do we have anything to say? Any predictions here on our new fine buffs?
Yeah, I guess that's a good segue to talk about their over under this year at 5.5 wins. And yeah, I guess again for the gays and the girlies, the sportsbook Las Vegas has Colorado at 5.5 wins. So if you think they're going to go over, you would bet the over. If you think they're going to go under that, you would bet the under. What I would bet on, what I would put my entire 401k on is the over. I
would
think
agree.
6
Yep.
games. I think 6 games is doable. The expectation should be closer to 9, right? The way this team is shaping up, Shooter Sanders maybe the best quarterback in college football.
I have a feeling he will be.
Travis Hunter maybe the best player, period,
Yep.
in college football.
Overall
They
athlete.
should be looking at 9 wins. By the way, Deion has been talking thus far, but the line's at 5.5. I still think it's going to be over.
Oh, it's totally. And here, I'll make a bet with you, John, just on this first game to start our bets going. I will bet you that, and I'll let you take the over here, that we beat North Dakota State by at least what's a good guess for how many points we beat them by if we're having a great game?
We can check the line right now. Actually,
Just off the top of your head.
My guess is that the point spread, which is what Lincoln just described, how many points is Colorado going to win by, is 14.5. Will you look up the line for Thursday's game, John?
Yeah.
Well, we're just going to look up.
And so here's the bet I will give you. If we don't get them by at least 14, right? 14 points.
yeah, 2 touchdowns.
14
14.5.
14.5. So
Yeah.
if we do under that, I will personally show up to a party next week, show up to like a pre-watch party painted in red. John, do you agree to that?
I agree to that.
All right. Actually, let's make it fun. Let's embarrass myself. You don't have to walk around campus. If we win by by more than 14.5 points, like we said, a half, obviously. So just to be clear, if we win anything less than 15 points, right?
Well, do you guys want to go? Do you want to go by the real line? So the real line is 9.5 points.
Okay. Let's do the real line.
Okay.
So if they win by 9, we'll just go even 9. If they win by 9 or more, I will personally paint myself red and go walk around the hill. Okay. If they lose, though, you got to shave.
Or if they
I
only
have to
win by
shave my
less than
head.
9
but
points.
not just if they go under the spread, if they lose to North Dakota State, you have to shave your head.
I don't know if I can agree to that.
What's something you can agree to? All right, you got to get a tattoo I choose.
Okay.
On the forehead.
On
You
the
already said-
forehead.
You already said okay.
Oh, man, you guys got me.
I got you. Now I know exactly where to put it. Tramp stamp.
Who's that?
All right, so let's real quick. Anything else we want to bring up? I think that's all we're touching on in terms of current events, right?
I don't have
Yeah,
anything
great.
else.
So we're gonna take one more break here, and then when we're back, the reason we got old Jake Zimmer here, we're gonna talk about the death of the Pac-12. We're gonna hold a funeral for, arguably, in my humble opinion, and obviously my mom coached CU in the Pac-12, led them to I believe a conference championship. We have a lot of love for the Pac-12 in my family. We're going to hold a funeral for the beloved conference that is now the Pac-2 and essentially just the Mountain West upper division. So, we'll be right back. Thank you to Boulder CRM for sponsoring today's episode. Boulder CRM is the exclusive distributor of 360 SMS text messaging for Salesforce, both in the USA and Canada. Their consultants are expert text messaging marketers, and many have worked or consulted with competitor SMS apps before finding the tremendous 360 SMS. It's from the guy, the man, the myth, the legend himself. I won't say his name, but the founder of Action Grid. Action Grid obviously sold to Conga, if you didn't know. Absolutely one of the best platforms out there, one of the best apps on the Salesforce App Exchange. And, I don't know about you, John, but I don't know where I'd be in life without Salesforce.
I mean, it really has become like a daily necessity.
Yeah,
I need to get my daily Salesforce.
Obviously, I live and breathe customer relationship management. Yeah. I would not be where I am today without it. And
I owe my life.
Especially with SMS texting, they got some pretty big contracts. So I would say with my heart, I would trust them with my life, especially with my business. Boulder CRM, like I said, the exclusive partner with 360 SMS, they will walk you through it like they're teaching you how to ride a bike. Really the name of the game when it comes to SMS texting and integration, especially into Salesforce. So once again, thank you to Boulder. It's spelled BOLDER, Bold, or CRM.
Clever.
All right, well, welcome back to What the Buff, football for the frat boys, the girlies, and the gays. We're all represented here. John actually is, what you're going by, Johnita now, right?
Juanita.
Sorry. John is comes from a robust Mexican family and a very white mother. We actually reversed.
Great people on both sides.
I was about to say. Anyways, so obviously I want to make sure, PC, we can make that joke because I do in fact have a gay friend. My boyfriend is gay and he signed off. So let's get started here. The death of the Pac-12 funeral service. Pac-12 was obviously a powerhouse. You had USC, CU, but more so Oregon, Washington, Oregon State. Go Beavers.
Can't forget about Oregon State.
Can't forget about it. Everyone forgets about Oregon State.
Yeah, seriously.
No one's winning like Oregon State's winning. And let's talk about, who benefited, who lost from this. So if you didn't know, the biggest story of realignment, of conference realignment last year was the absolute destruction, the murder of the Pac-12. And I'm not going to point fingers, USC, UCLA, obviously that would be rude, but they probably one of the most underrated conferences, and I think that's their fault with their broadcasting rights. Obviously you weren't seeing a lot of games on ESPN because of their network that just flundered. And so if you didn't know, a couple teams, I won't say UCLA or USC, I won't name them. And I actually might even be wrong. I think ASU might have also been involved in the coup d'etat, but one might argue it was like the January 6th of football.
Interesting.
If one might argue. But yeah, so obviously a lot of people went to the Big Ten. I don't think, did anyone go to the SEC or?
There were some schools added to the SEC. I don't think they came from the Pac-12.
That would have been nuts. Talk about the travel, poor golf team and women's volleyball, which let's get into that in a sec. But obviously CU, if you didn't know, was a founding member of the Big 8, which is now the Big 12. So we're essentially it's a homecoming for us. My mom was obviously, I come from a very strong Pac-12 family. My mom coached CU track cross country in the 90s when they did their nationals run. And I believe it might have been in the Big 8, but I'm pretty sure it was in the Pac-12, one of the first years of it. My heart goes out to the Pac-12. And really, in my opinion, they did it to themselves, the leadership. I don't know his name, but their former, I think, president or whoever led them, it really came down to media rights, media buys, because obviously...
John, what was his name?
Yeah, can you look that up?
Yeah.
John's the only one with a computer that didn't die in our first segment. I forgot my charger and I was at 4%. Or we've also been talking that long. So
Larry Scott.
Larry Scott.
2 first names.
He's
Larry
the one
Scott.
that blew it?
Yeah, I guess so. Wait, is he the current one or the past one?
Because whoever
I think they
got fired. Yeah, I'm sure.
Totally.
But yeah, I think I don't know a ton about what happened there, but I think what happened was there was some TV arguments about where games were going to be shown. So a bunch of schools packed up and left.
Yeah, so I can actually tell you. So, yeah, it's pretty much USC and UCLA started it, got the ball rolling. They left. They went to the Big Ten. At least one of them did. And yeah, so the media rights, obviously, the media buys are where the money is in when it comes to football. Obviously, it conference realignment determines every sport at your university, but when it comes to it, the only 2 teams under consideration are football and basketball.
Sure.
Obviously. So what happened a couple years ago, they were doing their media rights and ESPN gave them a really good offer. They thought they deserved more. Obviously, like I said, Pac-12 is kind of the ugly stepbrother. They kill it. They're the Cinderella. Great conference, but kind of underrated, especially then. I think they were having a pretty bad season.
Yeah, and they overplayed their hand.
Yeah, and so they overplayed, and they ended up doing their own network, not associated with ESPN or Fox or anyone, and it did not catch on. It was a blunder.
Damn.
Schools lost a lot of money there, and I think they were some sour apples. People were not thrilled. I completely understand why teams left. I mean, obviously we left. I think it was not the right move. I think USC and UCLA were definitely not chillers. That was not very demure of them. One might argue.
What is demure?
Demure, dang. I honestly don't even know. But yeah, so that was essentially what caused it. Obviously, they had a media rights deal coming back up. USC, UCL could have waited. Everybody wanted this guy. What was his name? Scott or something?
Larry Scott.
Larry Scott. Are we sure that was him?
Yeah, he is the former.
People wanted to hire him?
No, people wanted him out. Obviously. And I think he did get booted, but obviously people were still sour at the conference as a whole, especially with Washington going so far, especially with Oregon having such a good season. And obviously UCLA, USC. Is Arizona good? Or ASU? Which is the bad one?
I don't think either of them are that great at college football.
Well, anyways, especially with Prime coming in, there was a lot of potential for a massive media rights deal if they ditched the network and went with ESPN or went with Fox. UCLA, USC, they didn't wait. They just jumped ship. And obviously, after that, everyone needed to. This is a homecoming going back to the Big 12. The CU was a founding member of the Big 8 back in the day, which is now the Big 12. Really, it's like the Big 18 or something now.
The numbers don't matter.
The numbers don't matter anymore, which is kind of a bummer. Obviously, it's really now the Power 4, and then really, the Pac 2 now is really just the like upper division of Mountain West.
Yeah.
Because I think you were telling me they're pretty much just playing in the Mountain West Conference, but as a separate conference, correct?
Yeah. So Oregon State is in the Pac 2. As Lincoln described it, but most of their schedule is made up of Mountain West teams, Air Force, CSU.
Are they playing Wyoming?
Montana?
Yeah. Are they playing Wyoming this year? Montana might. Yeah, they're Mountain West, I think.
When I said Montana was actually what I meant to say was Wyoming, the Cowboys. Yeah. I'm 99% sure they play that team this year.
So,
but they're just Mountain West. That's effectively the conference they play.
Yeah, and I think Mountain West is up. I think they could. I don't think they added any teams for kind of like technical reasons.
Yeah, and they didn't technically add any teams.
If the Mountain West didn't kind of get eaten up by the Pac-12, just so it could survive. Because you have great teams. You have Oregon State and Washington State have immense power, over being able to build this conference back up if they want. They have great teams in Air Force. They have great teams in those two schools themselves. They are not bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to see what happens to the Pac-12. And I'm interested to see it Big Ten, So who do you guys think, I should say Big 12, is going to be our games to watch? Obviously, the Nebraska-CU rivalry goes back long. The saying is, I'd rather be dead than red. But what teams are you excited to see? Obviously, we start with not our most important game, but, the game that can kill us is North Dakota State.
Yep, not a tune-up game.
Then we're going to Nebraska. We're going to Fort Collins. So we're playing, obviously, our biggest rival, Nebraska, biggest state rival. They want to think we're their biggest rival. But
which I don't know. After last year, maybe it's closer than
maybe. But
than you guys
we're playing the Rams. Then we're playing Baylor, UCF, Kansas State.
Kansas State will be a good game.
That will be a great
one.
game. I want to say it might be a home game. I'm not fully sure.
It is a home game.
Arizona, Cincinnati, Texas Tech.
Cincinnati will be a good game as well.
Utah, Kansas, going to play the Jayhawks, and then finally finish it out with Oklahoma State. We'll see if we get any bowl games. I'd be shocked still if we did, but that'd be beautiful. A little cherry on the top if we really pulled a Ted Lasso here. And
I think that's the bar, actually.
I think the bar
is a bowl
is,
game.
Yeah. I think I'll be personally disappointed if we don't get one.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get the Pop-Tart Bowl, what are we doing?
Yeah.
If we don't get the Eggo's Waffle Bowl, or whatever. I think we need the Native Roots Bowl if they do it at Folsom. I think Folsom would be a great spot for a bowl. But let's wrap things up here. Finally, we're talking about the Big 12. I personally am most excited for Nebraska. Yeah. Obviously, like I said, I'd rather be dead than red. We will be hopefully going to the game. It's in Nebraska. Hopefully, Jimmy John's will be flying us out. The Jimmy John's franchise we're partnering with does have home seats, so we'll see how they have season seats. Anyways, what's your hot take for week 1?
My hot take in week 1, because we're in week 1, will be for the season. Does Deion Sanders care more about CU football or his son going high in the draft and Travis Hunter going high in the draft?
John?
Which one does he care more about?
I want to look to back to Will Shepherd. I think he will be a really good offensive piece this year and will eclipse 1,000 yards. That's my
really okay.
prediction.
Honestly, I think my hot take is I think by the end of the season, CU is going to have not a fight song, but an anthem that rivals Dixieland Delight, that rivals Rocky Top.
It's hard.
And I personally, my mission is to get the sponsor or to get the song. What's the Blink-182 song played at the Avs? What is it?
All the
small things. My goal is to get that going. And personally, I think should either be, I think the perfect song for it is Folsom Prison Blues.
Wow.
Johnny Cash. Think about it. Folsom Stadium. And I think there's some great opportunity to, get some chants going, rough them up. I won't say the last part, go see you. Added into that song. I think, obviously, Deion has just fully embraced the cowboy aspect of the Buffaloes, bringing that back, which I have really appreciated. Old West.
Yeah.
People forget Colorado
They forget.
Denver was a cow town.
Let's
We
go.
have the National Western Stock Show. We have
Yeehaw.
Deion Sanders, who, he might be not from the state, from one of the whitest states in the country, but he
keeps it
definitely,
real.
He rocks that cowboy hat like nobody else. And so thank you for listening to this first episode. If you made it this far, subscribe, get us in the pod. We'll have a new episode out next week sometime. And thank you, Jake. Hopefully we'll have you back on. It's been a great first episode. Once again, we wanted to thank our sponsors, Jimmy John's and Boulder CRM. This podcast was produced by myself and John Santos, along with Pirate Audio. Jack Armstrong is the news director here at Radio 1190. Thank you to Radio 1190. We are proud to be part of them and proud to be Buffs, even though John does not go to CU. And I am ready to see Ralphie run, and I am ready to see CU win this season. I guess just closing off with Sco Buffs.
Sco Camels.
At Jimmy John's, We don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.